In 1942, Walt Disney himself designed a gas mask that looked like Mickey Mouse, complete with the character's ears and a picture of his face on the filter. This was not a publicity stunt. This was not marketing. This was the United States government asking the creator of the most beloved children's character in the world to make chemical warfare protection quote fun, unquote for toddlers. Because here is what no one tells you about World War II homes. They were not just houses anymore. They were survival bunkers, where 2-year-olds practiced putting on gas masks like it was a game, where kitchen tables doubled as bomb shelters, and where ordinary housewives were trained to fight incendiary bombs with bicycle pumps. We are talking about 38 million gas masks distributed to every man, woman, and child in Britain. Dining room tables that could survive your house collapsing on top of them, and government officials who would fine you for striking a match to light your pipe because the glow might help German bombers find your neighborhood. Today, we are walking through 25 of the most shocking, most unbelievable, and most genuinely documented home features from World War II. Modifications so extreme that they transformed ordinary family life into something that looked like preparation for the apocalypse. Trust me, by the end of this tour, you will realize that surviving World War II was not about rationing butter. It was about living in houses that were designed to keep you alive when the entire world had gone completely insane. Let us step inside the most paranoid homes in human history. 1. The Mickey Mouse Gas Mask Nursery. Every American home with young children had what looked like a normal nursery, but inside the toy chest, next to the building blocks and dolls, was something that would make modern parents call social services. A child-sized gas mask designed to look like Mickey Mouse. Walt Disney himself approved the design in 1942, working with the Sun Rubber Company to create masks that would make chemical warfare protection, quote, fun, unquote for children aged 18 months to 4 years old. About 1,000 were produced, each with Mickey's iconic ears and a picture of the character on the gas filter. But here is the detail that shows how normalized chemical warfare had become. Children were trained to wear these masks, quote, as part of a game, unquote to quote, reduce the fear associated with wearing a gas mask and, hopefully, improve their wear time and, hence, survivability, unquote. The most chilling part? Parents looked at their toddlers wearing these masks and thought, quote, the real enemy was not the Axis powers across the ocean, but the tiny human with the head of a cartoon mouse with a perma-grin sitting in her lap, unquote. 2. The British Mickey Mouse Child Bunker. Meanwhile, in Britain, every family home had what they called, quote, Mickey Mouse, unquote, gas masks for children, even though they looked nothing like the Disney character. The red and blue masks were for children aged 2 to 5 and were given this friendly name simply to make them less frightening. By September 1939, nearly everybody in the country had been issued with a gas mask, 38 million total. People were instructed to carry their gas masks at all times in case of attack. Even babies had gas masks that they could be placed inside. But here is what made British family life absolutely surreal. Children were taught to make the experience, quote, a game, unquote, and would deliberately, quote, annoy their parents by making a raspberry noise every time they breathed out, unquote. The government's advice to parents was chillingly casual, quote, toddlers soon learn to put on their own masks. Let them make a game of it, and they will wear their gas masks happily, unquote. 3. The Anderson Backyard Bunker System. Every British family with a garden had what looked like a normal vegetable patch, but dig down 3 feet, and you would find something that was part root cellar, part medieval siege bunker, an Anderson shelter buried in the backyard. By the outbreak of World War II in September 1939, Anderson shelters had been installed in the gardens of around 1.5 million houses. Over the course of the war, another 2.1 million were installed, making a total of 3.6 million shelters across Britain. These were not just holes in the ground. The shelters were made from 6 corrugated steel panels that were curved and bolted together at the top, buried up to 1 meter in the ground with a thick layer of soil and turf on top to keep them secure. But here is the detail that shows how desperate civilian life had become. Many people planted vegetables on top of their shelters, making the most of the soil heaped on their makeshift dugouts. Encouraged by the government's, quote, dig for victory, unquote campaign, your dinner was literally growing on top of your bomb shelter. 4. The Dining Room Table Bomb Shelter. Inside British homes, the dining room had a piece of furniture that looked completely normal during the day, but transformed into a life-saving bunker at night. The Morrison Shelter, officially called the, quote, Table Morrison Indoor Shelter, unquote. The shelter measured 6 feet 6 inches by 4 feet by 2 feet 6 inches high, with a solid steel plate "table" top, welded wire mesh sides, and a metal lath mattress type floor. The sides were detachable, so it could serve as both table and shelter. 500,000 had been distributed by the end of 1941, with Morrison shelters coming in self-assembly form. Each pack had 359 parts and 3 tools supplied. But here is what made family dinners surreal. Families would eat dinner on top of their bomb shelter during the day, then crawl underneath it to sleep at night. It was cramped and claustrophobic, with families lying close together, with barely room to turn over. The ultimate test of effectiveness? In one examination of 44 severely damaged houses, 120 out of 136 people escaped from severely bomb-damaged houses without serious injury when they used Morrison shelters. 5. The Total Blackout Command Center. Every home had what looked like an innocent closet near the front door, but inside was something that would make modern smart home enthusiasts weep. A complete blackout control system that could plunge the entire house and neighborhood into darkness in seconds. Blackout regulations were imposed on September 1st, 1939, requiring all windows and doors to be covered at night with heavy curtains, cardboard, or paint to prevent any glimmer of light which might aid enemy aircraft. Most people had to spend 5 minutes or more every evening blacking out their homes. If they left even a chink of light visible from the streets, an air raid warden would be knocking at their door. But here is how paranoid enforcement had become. Ernest Walls from Eastbourne was fined for striking a match to light his pipe. A man was arrested because his cigar glowed alternately brighter and dimmer, so authorities thought he might be signaling to German aircraft. The most ridiculous case? George Lovell put up his blackout curtain and then went outside to check if they were effective. They were not. And while he was checking, he was arrested and fined for breaking blackout regulations. 6. The government spy network of ARP wardens. Every neighborhood had what appeared to be helpful volunteers patrolling the streets. But these were not just community watch. They were 1.4 million Air Raid Patrol ARP wardens who served as an official spy network, monitoring every household for light violations, with the power to fine families and take them to court. There was supposed to be a warden for every street. They took their jobs seriously as a way to help the war effort. 1/6 were women. They wore steel helmets with a W on the front and carried a police whistle, torch, first aid kit, and gas mask. But here is how oppressive daily life had become. Civilian ARP wardens were tasked with enforcing blackout regulations with strict penalties for any infringement. The average fine was £2, worth £100 today. The absurd extremes? A woman in Ware blamed her dog for turning on a light. A Much Haddam farmer was caught burning rubbish, which was spotted by a pilot. The master of Schrodell's Hospital in Watford found it difficult to ensure no light escaped due to the building having about 2,000 windows. 7. The stirrup pump firefighting arsenal. Every household had what looked like a simple bicycle pump in the closet, but this innocent device was actually a key piece of equipment for fighting incendiary bombs during World War II. A hand-operated water pump that could direct a continuous jet of water up to 20 feet away on any flaming object. Families were trained never to throw water directly on an incendiary bomb, as it would explode, but to spray around it to make it burn out quicker. While fighting fires, it started. But here is what made ordinary housewives into firefighters. During the December 29, 1940 raid on London, stirrup pumps were used to save St. Paul's Cathedral when an incendiary bomb pierced the lead roof of the dome and lodged in its timbers. The government issued detailed instructions that sound like military training. Enter burning room on your hands and knees. Open door slowly. Keep down low to avoid smoke and flames. Operator of stirrup pump must stay outside room. A third person brings more water. 8. The child selection market. Every evacuation center had what looked like a community gathering hall, but these spaces were actually human markets, where billeting officials would line newly arrived children up against a wall or on a stage in the village hall and invite potential hosts to take their pick. The phrase, "I will take that one," became a statement indelibly etched in countless children's memories. Operation Pied Piper began on September 1st, 1939, evacuating over 1.5 million people in the first 3 days, with 800,000 being children. Host families could face a fine if they refused to take an evacuee. But here is the heartbreaking reality. Some wonderful foster parents would just take children for the sake of the child. Sadly, others would choose children. And then there would be the terrible situation that at the end, 1 or 2 unattractive children would be left. And there was this terrible sense of loss on the child's part. At the start, Each evacuee was given enough food to last one day: egg or cheese sandwiches, packets of nuts or raisins, biscuits with little packets of cheese, barley sugar rather than chocolate, and an apple or an orange. 9. The trauma factory separation system. What appeared to be normal school departure procedures were actually designed to traumatize families for national security. Many children remember leaving without an opportunity to say goodbye to their parents. They would go off to school with a gas mask and pre-stamped postcard and not return home. Parents received news of their children's destinations from notices posted on the school gate. Children were instructed to send pre-stamped postcards home carrying, quote, only cheerful messages that would not upset their parents, unquote, creating a false narrative of successful evacuation. But here is the most chilling discovery. On December 6, 1941, Anna Freud reported the results of a 12-month study concluding that, quote, separation from their parents is a worse shock for children than a bombing, unquote. Government studies comparing children who stayed in cities with those evacuated found that children who remained, quote, were taller, were heavier, and were emotionally more balanced and happier children than those who had been in billets in the country, unquote. 10. The double summertime mind control. Every household clock was part of a government psychological manipulation program. During World War II, there was, quote, double summertime, unquote. Clocks were moved 2 hours forward rather than just one, making evening lighter but mornings darker. As a child remembered, quote, I remember finding it difficult to get to sleep in the summer because the sun was still streaming through my bedroom window at 11 o'clock at night, unquote. This was not just convenience. It was designed to make blackout compliance easier while completely disrupting normal human circadian rhythms for the war effort. Before we continue with these absolutely documented home modifications, if you're shocked by how World War II turned ordinary houses into survival bunkers operated by children, smash that like button to help us expose more hidden history, and subscribe with notifications on, because we are revealing the terrifying truth about wartime domestic life every single week. Trust me, the next features we are about to reveal will make you question everything you thought you knew about, quote, normal, unquote, family life during the war. 11. The kitchen incendiary bomb laboratory. Every kitchen had equipment that looked like normal cookware, but was actually a complete firefighting laboratory. Families kept wooden scoops, small axes, crowbars, torches, wooden shovels, dark glasses, wooden sand buckets, stirrup pumps, water tins, and sand mats specifically for fighting incendiary bombs that fell through their roof. The government issued detailed instructions. Quote, lay sand bucket on its back, shovel out sand, cover bomb, then place bucket upright and scoop bomb into shovel and tip it into wooden bucket. Carry to a safe place, unquote. But here is what made ordinary housewives into bomb disposal experts. They were trained to rush directly toward burning chemical weapons. Quote, shield face with sand mat as you rush up to the bomb. A good substitute for a sand mat is a sugar bag, half filled with dry sand, unquote. 12. The underground London city. During the Blitz, in defiance of a government ban, 140,000 Londoners took shelter in the underground network on the busiest nights. Stations were fitted with bunks for 22,000 people, supplied with first aid facilities, and equipped with chemical toilets. 124 canteens opened throughout the tube system. Some sections of the underground were closed entirely for the duration. Aldwych became a permanent air raid shelter. Families essentially moved underground, creating an entire parallel civilization beneath London, while bombs fell above. 13. The gas attack preparation room. Every home had posted instructions for gas attacks. Quote, put on mask, holding your breath until mask is in position, turn up collar, put on gloves or keep hands in pockets, take cover in nearest building quickly, put up umbrella if you have one, unquote. Families kept, quote, number 2 ointment, unquote, from the chemist to rub on skin exposed to gas, and, quote, bleach cream, unquote, for emergencies. If you could not get treatment within 5 minutes, you were instructed to, quote, wash the affected place with soap and warm water, unquote. 14. The child spy. Training center children's lives became completely militarized. All had to deal with the threat of gas attack, air raid precautions, A2ARP, rationing, changes at school, and in their daily life. Some children from comfortable backgrounds found themselves in billets with no electricity or running water. Others from incredibly poor city areas arrived dirty and malnourished, shocking host families who were ignorant of inner-city poverty. Children became informants, reporting on their host families and monitoring compliance with wartime regulations. 15. The Victory Garden Fortress. Every patriotic family had a victory garden, but many planted vegetables directly on top of their Anderson shelters, encouraged by the government's, quote, Dig for Victory, unquote, campaign in 1940. These were not just gardens. They were camouflaged military installations where food production and bomb protection were integrated into a single system. 16. The Rationing Surveillance Kitchen. Every kitchen became a government monitoring station, where rationing controlled every aspect of food preparation, and families had to account for every gram of sugar, butter, and meat. Ration books became more important than money, and kitchens were designed around scarcity rather than abundance. 17. The Family Separation Trauma Center. When Bob Cooper arrived at his billet in Cornwall, he was extremely shocked to discover that his new home had no gas, electricity, or running water. Quote, We collected water from a well and used a bucket for a toilet. It was normal to them, but very strange to me, unquote. June Somick, from an Orthodox Jewish family evacuated from Manchester to Derbyshire, found her brother, quote, billeted with the local pork butcher. Had my parents known about this, I do not think we would have been allowed to stay the course, unquote. 18. The Post-War Reunion Disaster Room. When families reunited after the war, many discovered they could not connect. Quote, When I was reunited with my mom and dad, I did not understand them, and they did not understand me. We just could not get on, unquote. Fathers returning from the forces or prisoner of war camps seemed like strangers to children who had never known them. 19. The Air Raid Siren Mind Control System. During air raids, wardens sounded the sirens, made sure people reached shelters safely, watched for incendiary bombs, called firefighters, provided first aid, and helped remove people from bombed building rubble. These sirens controlled every aspect of civilian behavior, determining when families could eat, sleep, work, or move around their own homes. 20. The School Evacuation Military Operation. The evacuation was a huge logistical exercise, requiring thousands of volunteer helpers, teachers, local authority officials, railway staff, and 17,000 members of the Women's Voluntary Service. Schools became military departure points where childhood ended and survival training began. 21. The Anderson Shelter Flood Bunker. Anderson shelters tended to become waterlogged in winter, making them freezing cold and deeply unpleasant places to be. In low-lying areas, they tended to flood, and sleeping was difficult, as they did not keep out the sound of bombings. Families would spend entire nights in flooded underground bunkers, listening to bombs falling above them. 22. The Morrison Shelter Assembly. Terror Morrison shelters were supplied flat-packed for do-it-yourself assembly. That was not as easy as it sounds. They had over 300 parts, and you would almost need an engineering degree to put them together correctly. Families became mechanical engineers overnight, assembling complex survival equipment in their living rooms. 23. The Blackout Curtain Factory. In the months leading up to war, black paper sales increased. Women sewed blackout curtains and blinds. When London's Gaiety Theatre closed, its brown velvet curtains were auctioned off to be converted into superior blackout curtains. Every household became a textile manufacturing center, producing military-grade light suppression equipment. 24. The Child Gas Mask Training Academy children were taught specific procedures. Quote, Hold the mask in front of your face, with thumbs inside the straps, then put your chin well into the mask and pull the straps over your head, unquote. The government advised, quote, See that the rubber fits snugly at sides of jaw and under chin. The head straps should be adjusted to hold the mask firmly. To test for fit, hold a piece of paper to end of mask and breathe in. The paper should stick, unquote. 25. The Total Population Militarization System. Ultimately, more than 3.5 million people were relocated through evacuation schemes. London's population was reduced by almost 25% through both state and private evacuation efforts. The ultimate World War II home feature was the complete transformation of civilian life into military operations, where every house became a bunker, every family became a military unit, and every child became a soldier in training. So there you have it, 25 home features so shocking, so genuinely documented, and so absolutely insane that they could only have existed during humanity's most desperate hour. These were not just houses, they were survival bunkers disguised as homes, military installations disguised as dining rooms, and training academies disguised as nurseries. World War II was not won by armies and navies. It was won by ordinary families who turned their homes into fortresses and survived by being more prepared, more paranoid, and more militarized than any civilian population in human history. The home front was not a safe place behind the lines. It was the most dangerous battlefield of the entire war, where survival depended on turning your living room into a command center and your children into soldiers. What shocked you most about these documented wartime home features? Which one would you want for emergency preparedness today? Let us know in the comments. And if you are amazed by these verified facts about wartime domestic life, subscribe for more videos that expose the hidden truth about history's most extreme periods. Because the real World War II was far more terrifying and ingenious than any government ever wanted civilians to remember. Next week, we are revealing the secret wartime rationing crimes that could get you sent to prison. And trust me, some of these, quote, food violations, unquote, were so severe that black market butter dealers faced the same penalties as enemy spies.